Before we get started with today's video, I have an announcement to make. After years of telling other people's stories, I finally released one of my own. My novel Eternal Reign is available now in both ebook and paperback format for those of you who are like me and prefer to collect physical media. You can grab a copy right now on Amazon through the link in the description of this video. And now back to our regularly scheduled program. The Warrior of Light shows up in Razad Han right when Varshan was getting ready to call her. Something has happened to the Void Gate, and he wants to talk to everyone about it. As luck would have it, Y'shtola is supposed to be on her way to the city too, and hopefully that means she's figured out how to draw the light from the first. The fact that she shows up with the machine is a sign that she does have some good news, but that'll have to wait until after Varshan tells you all his news. Urianger sent a message saying that the brands that they were using to keep the Void Scent from coming through to the source are breaking down. The Loporrits are trying to keep them up and running for as long as possible, but it's only a matter of time before they fail completely and you have a full-scale Void Scent invasion on your hands. The fact that those seals had held Zodiark for eons but are breaking under Zeromus's power lets you all know that you're going to be in for a fight when you come face to face with the thing again. Fortunately, Y'shtola has come up with a way to draw the light from the first and use it to weaken the Void Scent. She worked with Sid in the Ironworks because no one who wants to build something complicated would be stupid enough to do it without him. And they've built some ether transmitters that they can use to guide the flow of ether from wherever they want. The plan is to put some in Nabatha Rang, right where the flood of light stopped, and guide that ether into the Crystal Tower. Since the thing is proven that it can send things across dimensions, it only makes sense to use it. Once that's done, they'll send the ether from the tower to the source, then into the rift to the 13th, right through Zeromus's shield. Since some of these transmitters have to be put on the first and you're the only person who can go, it's time for you to take a little trip. Zero wants to tag along so she can see the world that you brought back from the edge of destruction, so she can figure out how she can fix her own. She's perfectly fine getting into a spirit vessel and taking the ride in your pocket, since when Void Scent gets summoned, they leave their bodies behind anyway. So Y'shtola lets her borrow her spirit vessel so she can take the trip with you. Of course, that means you'll have to trek down Bekluk first so the new Mo can get the woman out of the crystal. While you're going to be off catching up with old friends, Estinian decides to head back to the moon to help guard the Void Gate. Since you're going to be dealing with a lot of light ether, Y'shtola thinks you should get Reen to help since she can control the stuff. Bekluk is happy to see you again until you mention the fact that not only do you need another soul freed from a spirit vessel, you're planning on taking light to the Void. All of that sounds like too much work, but since everyone who knows the Warrior of Light is used to her finding ways to make everyone's life more complicated, the dog Faye is fine with helping out. While the Fae works on freeing Zero, it tells you where Reen is so you can drag her into your nonsense too. Since you left the first, the girl has been spending all of her time trying to figure out what plants might grow in the empty so that place can start being livable again. That's a good way to spend her time, but she's more than willing to put that on hold to help you with your not so little mission. She doesn't have a connection to Hydaelyn anymore since the Primal is more than a little dead, but she can still control light. Since you came to get her for just that reason, that's a good thing. So once Bekluk brings Zero, you all can get started. The new Mo doesn't take long to free the woman from the vessel, and since you'll need the Fae to operate the Crystal Tower for you, it keeps the vessel. Grahatia sent instructions on how to work the thing, so that'll make the process easier. The new Mo goes off to get the process started after Zero makes it pretty upset by offering to let it eat some of her ether as payment for not leaving her stuck in the crystal. Zero was expecting this world of light to be different, but it's pretty much the same as the source. Reen, of course, is more than happy to give the woman a tour of the Crystarium since it's her first time there, and while she likes the city, she's more impressed by the fact that the world had been in the same shape as hers before it got fixed, which makes her feel a lot better about trying to fix her own. Since she's never been to any of the Aetherites on the first, Reen thinks the best way to get to Nabatha Rang is if you all hop on an Amaro and fly there, but Lena shows up and stops you all from rushing off. Bekluk told her what you all were planning on doing with the light in the Crystal Tower, and while using it for what you're about to do is possible, having that thing power up in the middle of the city and start shooting out light might scare people to death by making them think the flood is coming again. While you could talk to the people at the Crystarium and get them to be okay with it, that won't do much for the people who don't live there. The different groups only barely started working together, so having the Crystarium start using the Crystal Tower without telling anyone else what's going on might start a war. Or it could push the other groups toward finding ways to counter the tower if the people of the Crystarium ever get the idea to use it on them. That means you, Reen, and Zero will have to hold off on saving your world and take a trip to some of your old Shadowbringer stomping grounds to let the people know what you're about to do. And your first stop on this tour will of course be Yulmore, where Chai News is still running things. All of this is just an excuse for Zero to see the First and find out that the Warrior of Light is just as popular on that world as she is on the Source. But after the people of Yulmore hear your story, they obviously won't object, since you are literally the only reason anyone on the entire shard is still alive at all. After Yulmore, you all head off to see Runar and Raktika. He's happy to see you, but he would have liked it if you'd brought Ishtola. Once he hears that her world is in danger, it's a given that he'll support whatever you're trying to do. While you were visiting friends, Beklut got the Crystal Tower ready, so you, Reen, and Zero head to Nabatha Rang. Lena told Kassar what you were trying to do, and he's already figured out the best place to put the transmitters so they can draw the most ether. And since you had to waste a lot of time going to talk to people, Lena had some of her guards plant your other transmitters, so all you have to do is set up the ones in Nabatha Rang and then you'll be done. Once you've gotten them all set up, they work exactly how Ishtola said and start pulling out a lot of light ether from the flood. Seeing all of that ether makes Zero think that if she had it, she could save her world herself. So she does the most big brain thing you could think of and starts drawing the ether into her own body. It immediately starts to kill her because of course it does, but lucky for her, Reen is there to keep her from exploding. She still thinks that if she can carry some of that light in her own body, she'll be able to start fixing her world, which she's not wrong about, but she'd never be able to contain that power on her own. Of course, Reen can help her absorb it safely, similar to what she did for you back in Shadowbringers, as long as the woman doesn't do what you did and try to absorb all of it. With Reen keeping the woman from exploding, Zero absorbs as much light as she can while the rest gets sent to the Crystal Tower. With that said and done, Beklut puts her back in the spirit vessel and the two of you head back to the Source so you can all get ready to launch your final attack on the Void. When you get back from the First, Varshan hits you with some not so good news. The seal around the Void Gate has nearly gone out entirely, so you all need to get ready to attack ASAP. Once Ishtola gets Zero back in her body, she is happy to see that the light ether that she absorbed is still there, so she didn't lose the power from the trip. That's good, because she'll need it soon. Varshan heads off to switch into his dragon form, while the rest of you hop back to the moon to get ready for your final assault on the Void. Once Varshan makes it, you all head through the portal. The ether around Golbez's base has changed, which makes Zero pretty sure that the man has made some new and not so pleasant surprises for you all. But you all have one for him too, so you set up the ether transmitters and fire all of the light ether you gathered right into the heart of the crater. It makes a hole that's not nearly big enough for Dragon Varshan, but he brought the smaller vessel so he can join you on the inside. He can sense his sister's ether trapped inside of Zeromus, so he's definitely coming with you, and you'll need him because Zero can sense that Golbez filled the place with void scent. You all jump into the darkness and set off to hunt Golbez down, because you all know that the man won't let you just walk in and finish off Zeromus without doing things to make your job difficult. But before you finish him off for good, Zero wants to talk to him. That part will have to wait because he didn't gather a small number of void scent. There are a lot of them that you have to cut through. But that's not all. As you fight your way deeper into the crater, the Memoria crystal that you found draws you into the memory of the day Durant and Golbez went back to their capital city right after Zero refused to join them. You help the man fight to protect the villagers from the corrupted Memoriates and their pets, but when you reach the end, Golbez gets corrupted and turns into a monster. So to avoid leaving his friend to roam around as the very thing that they fought against, Durant corrupts himself so he'll have the strength to put his friend down. Since you're playing the role of Golbez in this vision, you have to face off against him. When it's done, Durant strikes down his hero and seals him inside of a crystal before deciding to take over his life and fulfill his wish to help the world. It's very Cloud and Zack from Final Fantasy VII like, where one man takes over the life of a fallen friend and pretends to be him. Now that you've seen what happens, you're all freed from the Memoriate crystal, and Zero finally realizes that the man you all thought was Golbez was actually Durant. The fake Golbez finally shows up to face you again in person. Since the man's primary goal is to save his world, Zero tries to use Naruto's famous Talk no Jutsu to try and reach common ground with the man, since she does want to save the world too, just not by invading another one. She thinks that if they work together they could find another way to do it, and he'd be all for it if she had more power than Zeromus. But since she doesn't, none of what she says means anything to him. Being weak and idealistic doesn't trump power no matter how noble your cause, something that got proven to him in the very battle you relived. He had given up after that, but an Ascian came to him and brought him to the moon where the Watcher lived. The Ascian claimed that him and the other servants of light had given people the powers that had made the Contra Memoria War last so long, so Golbez killed him. Turns out what the Ascian said was a crock of crap, and the Watcher was the only thing keeping the Flood of Darkness from taking the world, So when Golbez killed him, the flood hit. He's basically Arbor 2.0. But there was no Menphilia to stop the flood, so the entire world died. The Ascian hadn't planned on destroying the world, but she was like, oops, and left, leaving Golbez to deal with the aftermath. And that moment made him stop trusting people, relying only on his own skills to figure out how to fix what he had started, so he could give his people back the ability to die. Ashdaya showing up had given him the ether he needed to experiment, but what he needed was more power. He didn't get it until the day the piece of Zodiac that was sealed on the moon exploded into a cloud of ether, something that happened the day the Warrior of Light killed him on the source. All shards of Zodiac died with the original, but since ether can't go into the life stream from the void, it stayed there, and Golbez was able to use it and the dragon to come up with a way to break the barrier between worlds. Now he's on the final stage of his plan, and he won't let any of you stop the super void scent from fully waking up. That means it's time for a fight. Golbez was ready to delay you all even though he's still hurt from your last fight, because while you were away he used the remains of his Archfiend's ether to restore them. They're not nearly as strong as they were before, but they can still stall for time, which is all Zeromus needs to wake up. So the no longer Scions of the Seventh Dawn and Zero deal with them, while the Warrior of Light jumps feet first into the darkness to try and put down Zeromus before he wakes up and starts the Voidsent invasion. Since it's merged with Ashdaya, the thing's only goal is to go back home to the source, and that means cutting a path through whatever's in front of it, starting with the Warrior of Light. The battle against Zeromus is well underway, and using her technique of summoning allies from across space and time, the Warrior of Light gets to work doing what she always does, and that's poking really big creatures with pointy objects. Her and her group manage to slow the Voidsent down, but the fact that it just regenerates when it's beaten is not easy to deal with. But the not Scions of the Seventh Dawn and Zero finish their battle with Golbez, and they show up to lend a hand. Apparently Zero is good at using Naruto's Talk no Jutsu, because Golbez decides to show up and help bring down the monster that he made. The Warrior of Light's Echo, which finds the worst times to turn on, shows her what had happened in her friend's match with Golbez and how they managed to turn him. They had beaten him and his reborn Archfiends, which gave Zero the chance to talk to the man again. She pointed out that breaking the barrier between the void and the source wouldn't fix the world, but if the two of them work together, they may be able to really heal it. So she draws out some of the light ether that she took from the first to prove to him that it's possible, something that she was only able to accomplish by trusting others to have her back. Trusting people is very un-Voidsent-like, since that could lead to you getting eaten, but she figures giving Golbez a chance to work with her to fix the world is better than letting Zeromus kill everyone. Since he had made a similar offer to her in the past and she'd refused it, she really hopes that he doesn't make her mistake, because she's pretty sure that battle where the real Golbez died would have turned out differently if she had teamed up with him. To prove that she's serious, she gives him some of the light ether, and it lets him remember the day that they had met, and just how much her turning down their offer had messed with their morale, because they knew that everyone fighting their own individual battles would never be enough to stop the war. And they had been right. So he decides not to make the same mistake, and he teams up with the Scions. Varshan still isn't happy about what the man did to his sister, but he's willing to look past it if the man helps save her. Ishtola even offers to help figure out how to fix the void, but she's probably doing it more to see if she can than to help the Voidsent. He agrees and the vision ends. Fortunately, this whole scene played out in a few heartbeats, because Zeromus breaks through Golbez's shield and Zero decides to go on the attack. She wants Varshan to be ready to use his dragon powers to call his sister the minute she scatters Zeromus's ether. That way he can separate the dragon from the thing. But as soon as she hits the Voidsent, it counters with an attack of its own that nearly kills her. That's when all of the light ether she absorbed takes over and lets her change jobs from a Reaper to a Paladin with enough holy power to cut through the Voidsent, once Golbez lends her a bit of his own. That gives Varshan the chance to summon his sister, and she breaks free of Zeromus right before Zero crystallizes the thing. Ashdaya doesn't have the ether left to survive, so Varshan gives her the eye that he was using to power his vessel. That gives his sister enough power to form a new, yet a lot smaller body. That also makes him lose control of the vessel, so you all have to carry it out of the crater. With the battle done, Golbez goes to leave since he did kind of cause all of this, but Zero tells him that the fact that he helped in the end makes up for all of that. It really doesn't though. Not at all. And the fact that she, being somebody who he didn't actually do anything to, thinks she has the right to decide that him sucking the life out of Ashdaya for thousands of years, merging her with the Voidsent, then trying to make her invade her own world as a monster, can all be wiped away because he blocked an attack for them, is probably one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. But these people all operate on video game logic, so I guess we'll let it go. With the dragon saved and the invasion stopped, everyone is ready to head back home. So for what will likely be the final time, since she's going to get tossed on that long list of characters that get forgotten about, the Warrior of Light, the Dragon, and the Scions, who disbanded in name only, tell Zero goodbye and good luck on her mission to fix the world with Golbez. To help them out a little bit, Y'shtola summons her little water minion without the very childish chant that she had before, and after threatening you all with bodily harm if you ever mention the original again, she gives the thing a new and improved warding scale and gives it to Zero to help you all stay in contact. Since she's not coming back, Zero wants you to take Reen the Memoria crystal that's filled with all of the darkness that had come from Zeromus. If she can draw it out, it might help finish balancing the ether of the first, which should technically help the Void too since they're connected. The Warrior of Light gives her the crystals that contain the Archfiends, and with that done, you all finally head home. With the threat from the Void over and dealt with, the Scions of the Seventh Dawn head back to the moon of the Source, where Living Way lets them know that a crack had appeared in the barrier between the First and the Source, so everyone who was with her saw you all take down Zeromus. They saw you win, but they didn't see what happened with Y'shtola, so Y'shtola gets her caught up. The dragon's original form was very much dead, but Vritra made her a new body with one of his eyes. Granted, she will have to grow from a baby dragon to an adult again, which could take a very long time, but she's not dead and she's back home, so that's a win. Since Zero stayed on her world to fix it, the Moon Bunnies, who don't really have all that much to do, start thinking of ways that they can help her, but you've done enough, so they tell you to do the one thing that you don't ever seem to want to do, and that's go relax. Since your trip back down will take you through Garlemald, Urianger wants you to let Julius know how everything went, and that Zero won't be coming back. Since he seemed to like the woman more than a little bit, it's only right to tell him. Julius is with the twins when you, Estinian, Urianger, and Y'shtola show up, so you only have to tell the story once. They're excited to hear about the battle and how Y'shtola channeled ether from the First all of the way to the Void, but Julius is kinda bummed that he didn't get to give Zero a proper send-off. Now he has to find another stoic goth chick to crush on. He is happy that things worked out for her, and since she's pushing herself to rebuild the Void, it only makes sense that he puts the same effort into rebuilding Garlemald. With the new trade deal with Razat Han, they're all well underway to getting their nation back up and running, but it will take some time. They wouldn't have come nearly as far as they had without the twins, so Julius and the other Guardians tell them to do what they should have done a long time ago, and that's go home and take a break. Neither of the twins understand the concept of a break, so they decide to use their time off to visit some other nations that don't have any history with Garlemald. That way they can maybe make some new alliances. In other words, they're gonna do the exact opposite of take a break, but they will go back to Sharlayan to plan their next move first, so they might end up relaxing for a little while. Y'shtola figures that you all need to talk to the twins' dad to thank him for his help too with the whole Void situation, so your entire supposed to be disbanded group of Scions head back to Sharlayan together to talk to Fortunato. He's of course happy to see his kids, but once he hears about your whole dragging light ether across shards trick, his first thought is how you all could have blown something important up, but since it didn't happen he won't dwell on it. But the forum wants Y'shtola to write a full report on what she did, because it will probably be useful for some nonsense in the future. For now, Varshan wants you all to come back to Razat Han for a feast to celebrate the return of his sister. The twins would come, but if they leave right after coming back to the city, their mom would probably kill them. Urianger has something else to do in Sharlayan too, so he's gonna have to pass. And the Warrior of Light has to make a trip back to the First before she does anything else, so she can get Zeromus's crystal to Reen. Since they might need to use the Crystal Tower again, Y'shtola lets you take her spirit vessel back to them too. So you head off to meet up with Reen again to let her know what happened, and to give her Zero's gift. Beck, Luke, Lena, and Reen are happy to hear that things worked out for you, and it turns out that your not-so-little trip around the First helped remind the people of Norvrant why they were working together in the first place, which should help keep tension down between the nations. Reen can feel the darkness coming from the crystal that you brought, and even Beck Luke thinks it might actually be able to do just what Zero said about restoring the empty. But Reen will need to learn more about her own powers first, so she's gonna hold off on the whole plant studying thing for a bit, just so she can spend some time learning what she can actually do. Gaia, who conveniently wasn't there when you came by with Zero because there can only be one goth girl on screen at a time, finally shows up before you leave, which means you have to tell her the whole story about what you've done, and about the plan to use darkness from the Void to fix the empty. With her being who she is, you would think that they would have come up with that idea a long time ago, but nothing ever said they were smart. With your mission finished, you make your way back to Razat Han to join the others at the feast to celebrate the return of Y'shtola. The whole city is there drinking and having a good time talking about some of the dumbest things. Estinian can't believe all of this came because he bought an extremely expensive map, and he's curious to find out what's going to happen in the future. For the moment, Ishtola's only plan is to spend who knows how long working on a report to Sharlayan, and of course figuring out how to get back to the First, while Varshan plans on reclaiming his lost time with his now little sister. It's finally time for everyone to get that break they were supposed to get after the final days, at least until the next adventure pops up, and it will probably have something to do with the letter Kryle found asking for help from her grandfather, as well as the very mysterious person that Erenville brought back with him from his homeland, which just so happens to be the New World. This concludes the story of Growing Light. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it, comment, share it, and subscribe. Donate to the channel if you can, and I'll see you all next time.